Government officials are addressing a controversial remark made by a Haitian Bahamian a few days ago. That story coming up in the Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition.
And also in the news tonight, members of the Diplomatic Corps gather here in downtown Nassau for the start of a week of activities. So don't go anywhere. The Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Everyday.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition. I'm LaDawn Davis. Thanks so much for tuning in. Topping the news tonight, following controversial remarks made by a Haitian Bahamian man on our newscast on Friday night after the demolition of a Haitian shantytown, that matter is reportedly being investigated. Government officials are urging Bahamians not to create hysteria on those basis of those comments, with the International Organization for Migration estimating that in 2009, between 20,000 to 50,000 undocumented Haitians lived in the Bahamas. Recently, efforts have intensified to ensure that the country's integrity is not undermined due to illegal migration. The Ministers of Immigration and the Environment addressed the issue at a press conference this afternoon. Cieska Adderley has the details.
Law enforcement officers are now investigating remarks made by Mitchell Sidor, a resident of a shanty town in Joe Farrington Road that was demolished on Friday. Addressing the issue Sunday, Immigration and Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell urged Bahamians not to create divisions where there isn't any and not to get carried away with what was said. With 2,800 Haitians out of more than 3,400 illegals repatriated this year alone, Mitchell strongly advised residents and non-nationals to respect the work of officials charged with protecting the country's borders.
There's no reason to be abusive to public officials who are simply carrying out their job in good faith and in the law. They are taught not to be abusive to any citizen or resident of this country, and so similarly the citizens of the country ought to be respectful. I'm not saying they have to be obsequious. They do have rights as well, but they have to be respectful to authority. We're trying to make sure that the country is properly governed and that people who have the right to live and work in the Bahamas have the means of proving that they are here and here lawfully. And that's all this is, and it's not trying to cause any trouble for any specific group of people.
Minister Mitchell stressed actions taken by his ministry are not discriminatory, but only to ensure the country's integrity is not undermined. Unfortunately, Mitchell says in some cases, Bahamians are to blame for driving illegal migration.
This is not a policy, either the removal of the shanty towns or the question of whether you have permission to live and work in the Bahamas is not a question which is aimed at any specific national group. And we should refrain from pointing it in that direction, because it is not. The matter is a generic policy which applies to all non-nationals who are in the country. And we've also said that we're moving in the direction of a national identity card for everyone who is here.
Housing and Environment Minister Kenrick Dorsett noted that Friday's demolition was in accordance with the law. He says it's all a part of the government's plan to eradicate shantytowns throughout the Bahamas. To date, approximately 6 shantytowns have been removed in New Providence alone, and a lot of them have been reduced in size. But as funds become available, Dorsett says the plan is to remove them.
While it is a highly emotive issue, we are following the law and enforcing the law. But even in doing so, I think that the government has been incredibly reasonable, and we work together with communities. And the Ministry of Social Services and the Minister in particular has taken a hands-on approach in dealing with these issues, because we know how sensitive it is, and we want to make sure that we do so as best as possible to ensure that we would not have these sort of reactions from persons who reside in the Bahamas.
Recognizing that unchecked illegal migration could lead to civil strife, the immigration minister reiterated that steps are being taken to bring the matter under control. Cieska Adderley, ZNS Network News.
Two Dominican vessels with a total of 8 people on board were arrested in the southern Bahamas at 3 o'clock this morning by HMBS Durwood Knowles under the command of Lieutenant Commander Christopher Darville. Defense Force Commodore Roderick Bode telling ZNS News this morning that large quantities of fish and crawfish were found on board. The vessels and occupants will be brought to New Providence and handed over to authorities. Commodore Bode says 3 of the 9 vessels acquired in the $232 million Sandy Bottom project is already paying great dividends, including apprehending illegal migrants, persons found on the high seas with drugs, illegal weapons, and poachers. Members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force informing Coral Harbor residents yesterday about the Sandy Bottom project and the impact the dredging process will have in their community soon. This year, the government signed a $232 million contract named Operation Sandy Bottom. It includes a comprehensive plan to purchase 9 vessels from Damen shipyards out of Holland, training as well as to dredge and expand the bases at Inagua, Ragged Island, and Coral Harbor. The goal is to equip the Royal Bahamas Defense Force with the resources to safeguard our borders. And while the dredging is necessary to accommodate the new vessels, residents feel the impact will be greater than what officials estimate.
15,000 cubic yards of material that would be dredged. Of that volume, some 173,000 would actually be used here on the Coral Harbor base side for the land reclamation, where they're going to be extending their footprint.
In a matter of days, dredging on the Defense Force's multi-million-dollar Operation Sandy Bottom project will commence, making way for larger vessels to dock at Coral Harbor Base. 3 of 9 vessels are already patrolling the waters. At a town meeting hosted by the Royal Bahamas Defense Force on Saturday, several residents offered mixed reviews on the dredging process.
I've paid a lot of money for my residents in this area, and I do care about that. There's also the beach erosion. That question's not been answered today. There's also the environmental impact. That question's not been answered today. There's also the road degradation, which hasn't been answered today.
I counted more than 7 trucks hauling fill along that street. None of them had any tarp over them to make certain that no dust from the fill that they were hauling in would not be blowing along the area.
3 new subdivisions just opened in the Coral Harbor area, and trucks were moving in and out all day. There was no public consultant. There was no issue. These are private investors to make money. The Bahamas government is doing something to protect our country.
Minister of State for Finance and MP for Golden Isles, Michael Halkitis, assured residents that once completed, the project will positively impact the community.
I believe that we are all in agreement that the Defense Force needs to be given the assets in order to do their job, but in order that they are properly deployed, we need to do some other things that in the short term would impact us, but I believe in the long term would definitely impact us in a positive way.
In response to the spread of Ebola, top health officials said they were confident that, like New Providence and Grand Bahama, the Family Islands will also be ready to take on any case of Ebola that may surface. Department of Public Health official Charlene Bain explained that some 56 sites throughout the Bahamas on a daily basis are reporting matters of public health interest. She says with Ebola's 70% mortality rates, these reporting conditions have since intensified.
We have targeted every major family island. In fact, our team is presently in San Salvador. We've completed Rumkey and San Salvador. We're moving to the Luthra on Sunday, and we will be in Andros, Mangrove Key, and Kemps Bay. We're moving into Bimini. Every island will be reached, and every island will have a stockpile of supplies in the event that something was to show up at their door.
And all of these individuals have hazmat clothing or the necessary clothing to protect themselves as well as protect the suspect from Ebola.
Not all of them will have, but by Wednesday this week, every major family island and every main clinic will have the protective personal equipment.
Though the gaming bill was passed in Parliament, there may still be challenges regarding compliance and regulation of the web shop industry. But government officials maintain the move is in the best interest of the Bahamian people. That story tonight from Oscar Adderley.
Principal at DSS financial corporate service provider Dave Smith says the government needs to outline a clear way forward now that the gaming bill has been passed. As it stands, Smith believes the legislation still poses some challenges.
It's a little bit challenging to understand how you're going to separate the economic benefit of what was, what may have been achieved previously prior to the act, and then how is that going to be dealt with going forward. So I think it will pose some challenges. Certainly the BACO as an organization, I believe, will need to provide certain training and technical assistance in order to ensure that the right standards are actually carried out and adhered to.
As the gaming bill moves closer to becoming law, Smith, who is a compliance officer and former regulator, called the need for compliance officers critical.
I do know that certainly in the role as a former regulator, a lot of reliance was placed on compliance officers to ensure institutions were following guidelines and laws and rules that were enacted.
But Tourism's legal department senior manager Vivian Dean expressed confidence that under these regulations, integrity will be maintained. She affirmed the government stands to enforce a regulated industry.
Everything we have thought about, every aspect that can come up, and we have entrenched it into the legislation. I think we have a very sound legislation.
Both Smith and Dean were speaking at the recent Bahamas Association of Compliance Officers workshop, which provided detailed aspects of the financial services sector, oncoming regulations, and the changing demands in the industry. Oscar Adderley, ZNS Network News.
And still to come, the Bahamas Carnival making its presence felt in the Peach State. That story and more when the Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition, continues.